a minor league football league or minor football league. All of the 4 major sports in the United States, baseball, basketball, and hockey, all have minor leagues with the exception of the NFL. The NFL had NFL Europe up until 2007, and since then have not had any other outlet to have a minor league. I think that though it would be difficult, it's important for the league to have one. One thing a lot of people haven't really linked is in the years since NFL Europe folded, more specifically recently, you've had a lot of teams struggling to develop their younger players, particularly at the quarterback position, where you've got a lot of teams that have drafted and redrafted quarterback, especially Cleveland being one that seems to draft a quarterback every year. There's no comparable league. When you look around, basketball specifically and hockey also, there are leagues in other countries that play really similarly, where a guy can go over if he doesn't make it into the professional league here and go play. You can play pretty much the same brand of hockey in Russia or Canada or whatever the case may be. If you're playing Finland. If you're playing basketball, European basketball is FIBA rules, but you're still learning skills that really apply. For the NFL, if you're playing Arena League football, the rules are different. The spacing is different. The position is different. So you're not necessarily getting those same skills. You're not really getting film that'll help you translate to the NFL. There are some European leagues out there, and the talent is not very widespread. You've got some guys who can actually play. I think Vincent Purvis is pretty talented, from what I've heard.
Yeah,
What?
But there are a lot of guys. I've got a friend who had a friend that played ball overseas that was just put in at quarterback because he was tall and had a stronger arm than him. But he'd never played quarterback before in his life, and that kind of hurts. The credibility of those leagues overseas. There's nowhere for you to get NFL-like reps except for the NFL. So if you're not a guy who's getting those reps, if you're your team's third-string quarterback and you just need reps, you're just going to sit and watch. You don't get but so many chances to break down defenses and things like that as a third-string quarterback, leading the practice squad in the NFL. Right now there are 2 leagues that are trying to gain ground in America for football. The Fall Experimental Football League has actually had 2 seasons. The first one was more successful than the second, but they're getting ready to start a third one here in October. And they currently have a deal with the NFL to use refs that are out of the NFL's refereeing academy. So they're bridging that gap for the referees with the hopes of doing the same thing for the players. And then there is the Professional Football League, or just call it Major League Football, that was supposed to start this year, ended up not having the financial backing, and just got evicted from their league office. So there's a chance that one may not start at all. They were talking about doing spring football, similar to what NFL Europe did. Most NFL Europe seasons were done by July, and this league was looking at doing that same thing, so that way guys that played well would be able to make training camps for NFL teams and make that roster if possible. I think that both of those are pretty good ideas, but it's really important, I think, for the NFL to kind of bridge that gap, especially for a league like the Major League Football that's having financial problems, to help get just enough money, even if they're not funding the league, being a major contributor to have those leagues be out there and create some kind of partnership down the road that'll lead to those leagues getting larger and having the ability for players to go back and forth. The finances be the biggest part because those rosters are so large, but I think that the benefits would outweigh the costs. Lynch, you want to, I guess, respond first?
Yeah, sure. I somewhat agree with that. We do need a developmental league for the NFL, like all the other major sports have, but simply because I think with all the changes of the last collective bargaining agreement, with the less practice time, the less physical time that these players actually get, it's actually hurting the players in the long run because they're not getting that time in, the time in that they used to get to hit one another, learn how to tackle better. Because in college, you're not getting taught how to learn how to tackle as much as you need to be, as far as the NFL is concerned. So back in the day, you used to be able to get that. You used to have guys like Arian Foster go undrafted and be able to showcase their talents and become a star in the league because they had all that practice time. You were going against the ones. If you were on the scout team, you were going against the ones. You don't have that now. So because of that, I feel like these developmental leagues that you're speaking of, the MFL, such as that, it needs to come to fruition because that helps the NFL in the long term. I would think the NFL would want to invest in such a system since you aren't having those players have as much practice time, and it's more tape and studying and going through the playbook. And there's been several NFL players who've actually complained about that. I believe I think it was Jeff Saturday wrote a article for ESPN stating similar to what I just said, that with the collective bargaining agreement, it was more for the older players, the veterans who had time in. So these developmental leagues, that if they had these, they'd have an avenue for these guys who, like the RG3s, who are talented, but they need to get more reps in a pro-style type offense, or the Kirk Cousins who you can see the talent, however limited you may think it is, he has the talent, so he gets a chance to actually play. The Trent Richardsons, they can teach him how to read a hole that's wide open, Maybe that would happen. But these guys we need another league to where these guys can hone their skills, because once you get to the NFL level, it's not about teaching. You have to know how to do it already once you get to that level. It's already, if they have to teach you, you're being left behind. So for me, that does make sense to have a developmental league, but I doubt that would sincerely happen because, that's just more money out of the NFL pockets. I think they would see it as a competition. Well, these guys are leaving. They might try to be like the USFL and try to take over and take our best guys and take our #1 draft picks and give them more money, where it shouldn't be like that. It will help them in the long run, but you know how the NFL is. It's all about the money, and they want to keep it for themselves. And that's what it would come down to, money, as usual.
As usual. Who's next? Purvis.
I'm gonna be brief. I just found out my laptop is low on battery, but I don't know why. I thought I had a charge. I'm with you. I think the NFL needs a developmental league, but I'm also being realistic that they won't do it. These leagues that you're talking about, these aren't subsidiaries of the NFL. They're leagues putting themselves out there trying to find a niche using those players who aren't in the NFL. The problem with that is that it wouldn't be an NFL developmental league, which would mean the NFL would pull out its bankroll and smash these leagues down before it even tried to take any of their money. So what the NFL would have to do is it would have to back a league. What you have in the NBA, the MLB, the NHL is you have minor league systems that are backed by the professional. What we have in the United States right now is we have, if you play semi-pro, there's at least 10 teams per state, 10 leagues per state, and then you have Arena League. There's 3 levels of Arena League, I think, and then you have Canadian Football League. You have too many leagues that aren't under one governed body. What you have to do is condense it so that you get a quality product that you can go back and forth from the NFL with. Right now, there's no product. There's no product for the NFL to pull players from. They have to create their own. And I think that the money must not be there because that's why the NFL Europe didn't work out. But also, it was in Europe, so that got to be expensive. Another thing that NFL Europe had that I think a lot of people are missing with these other leagues, NFL Europe had NFL coaches. There's coaches who coach in NFL Europe who are in the NFL right now. They're on coaching staffs. They were sent over there to develop and learn how it's done in NFL. These leagues that are starting up in the fall and stuff like that, they're not using this quality of coaching, and they're not using NFL members. They're not using NFL owners to start these leagues, which is why they're not making it, because they don't have the right forces leading them to get to where they want to be a developmental league. I feel that it's a really good idea, but it has to be backed by the NFL. The NFL is the only organization that can make this work, and I think the money must not be there. I mean, I guess I can call up Roger Goodell and find out, but it must not be there. They would have done it by now, for sure. I mean, would you pay to go watch a non-NFL game? I don't know. How much would you pay? That's something you got to think about when you're trying to do a developmental league.
I want to take a bit of a different approach to it. I do think that it is a good idea in practice, but then we have to set some parameters, and then we have to determine how we're going to do it. Are we letting early entry draft prospects do it who are potentially top picks who know they need to work on things? Are we doing first, second, and third year players who can't get playing time on their own teams, but their teams would like to work with them on some things? Are we going to let people who are trying to get who are trying to get one last chance in the NFL, are we going to let them do it as well? I mean, I think that would kind of be the first thing. We need to get that together logistically. Then once we do that, are they going to be able to, is each team going to have one? Like a minor league system like in baseball? I mean, I think, again, it's a very good idea in practice because Lord knows some of these people who come to the NFL now clearly aren't ready for it. There's still a huge difference in physicality from college to NFL, but then with college, being a lot of spread offenses, there are more pro-style offenses now, but, not being as big, not being as strong, not being as fast, obviously because they're not physically mature. And then the different types of offenses and defenses you have in college and in the NFL, I really think that it's difficult. I really think that if you're going to do it, this has to be like a pipe feeder team for every NFL team. It would be, and I don't know if all of the owners of the team are going to be interested in footing the bill for that. Then, like y'all mentioned, is it going to be like another league? Are people going to actually go watch these games? Or is it just like training camp style where they just work on skills and things? It's just a lot more questions that need to be answered. But I do think that in practice and on paper, yes, I think that would be a very good idea to do that. Get more of these kids that want to play ready for the NFL.
A couple of responses to you and Purvis. I think that obviously the NFL would have to have some kind of participation. All the other major leagues have contracts in place that allow players to be sent down to those minor leagues. It's negotiated in a contract, but they still get paid. So the NFL would have to do something along those same lines. Put it in your contract when you get drafted, when you get signed, whatever the case may be, where if the team wants to send you down, you go down. Obviously, the only way that makes sense is if the minor league is still playing with some form of the same playbook. So it would kind of be like the NBDL in that respect. I think one thing that would be really interesting going along those lines, if you do have that buy-in from the NFL, the teams having a positional coach or like a young coach be the head coach of the developmental team, and then as they've introduced now this internship program that has all these former players in it, why not have them be coordinators on these developmental teams? Have Deuce Staley be the running backs coach or the offensive coordinator, whatever the case may be, for his developmental team. Y'all know how I feel about Bleacher Report, but a few years ago, Bleacher Report did an article about just this topic, how to make it work, and they suggested doing 16 teams and having split per region. You'd have one NFC team split with an AFC team that was geographically convenient, if possible, to do the same minor league teams. So like Baltimore and the Redskins would do one, Dallas and Houston would do one, things along those lines. You could find teams from the other division that were close, put them in the same. Obviously, the thing about that is it kind of complicates what you do from a playbook perspective because which team gets the playbook, but then you don't have to worry about one team finding 50 odd guys that they want to put in there. But also still keeps some of the quality there. And then going back to what Purvis was saying, both of the leagues that are right now happening have some kind of relationship with the NFL, and I don't think that they would be really in competition with the NFL. If they're going to do a minor league, you look at a lot of it being like the Developmental Football League, only doing games in October. The Major League Football being in the spring kind of gives you the opportunity, if you play in those leagues and impress, either to make training camps with the NFL teams for the spring league or for the fall league, which is only in October. Once you get towards the last half of the season when you have a lot of injuries, those guys being able to step in. So you're not really competing too much with the NFL for money. And in the case of spring, you're really going out there in a market that's dry. There's not a lot of sports if you don't like baseball or tennis in the summer. So if you really get started in June or July, which is what I think they would do, you look around and you're not competing with nobody who watches football really watches tennis like that tough. Some people might watch both, but they're not going to be diehard fans. So if you get a chance to watch, even if it's lower level pro football, as opposed to having to watch Novak Djokovic lose to random guy X, who's going to turn that down? Fergus?
What I wanted to say to that, Alan, was just with the whole football teams having different people coaching for them and everything. A situation that's going on right now is in Europe, there's football teams who actually have that relationship. Like having a relationship with the NFL doesn't necessarily translate to being backed by the NFL. Now these leagues, they know people in the NFL. They might even have ex-coaches and front office people who were in the NFL. But there's a difference between having a relationship and being backed in the NFL. One of the best teams, American football teams in Europe right now, is the Swarco Raiders. They're remnants of the NFL Europe. They actually have an ongoing relationship with the Oakland Raiders. Every 2 years, their coaching staff goes to Oakland, stays down there for 2 weeks to a month, and learns from that coaching staff. This has been going on since NFL Europe collapsed. Now that's a relationship, but is this team like a developmental team for the Oakland Raiders? No, and that's what you're fighting against. If a league comes out and says the NFL is backing us, believe me, everyone would know that the NFL is backing them, and that would change the game. That's something that you got to work on. I think right now what the NFL is doing is telling these leagues that, hey, as long as you don't take any money from us, you can do what you want. You got our blessing. But there's a difference in letting you do what you want and saying that we're going to back you. And I think right now the NFL doesn't want to back anybody.
I agree. I don't think they really want to back anyone. You said something earlier about if the money was there, this would already be happening. I think they could find a way to get that money. I mean, they have so much money coming in from all different avenues that they're just spending. Instead of building multiple billion-dollar stadiums that the people got to pay for, to put that into a developmental league that allows people to watch more football, because a lot of people, under the guise of you can't get too much football, would I assume would watch, even if it is European league playing, because people want to watch football.
I watch European football all year long.
Exactly, and then parlay that into fantasy football, because people can't get enough of betting and gambling. You parlay those two into one another, you could have a league making its own money really soon. But I think, yeah, And I think it just depends on the talent. That's what I think the issue is. Like Turner was saying earlier, who would you let in? Is it going to be these third stringers who are barely hanging on? Is it going to be these college seniors or sophomores or juniors who got kicked out of school for whatever reason and need somewhere to go, somewhere to make a quick buck? You know, I think there would be a lot of parameters that they had to put in place. I think if everyone got together, the heads got together and came up with something, I feel like they would come up with a good rule system and boundaries they can have in place in order for them to flourish, and as well get these, because there's a lot of coaches or former players who want to become coaches in the NFL. They can use this time in the NFL Europe or developmental league to hone their skills, to teach NFL players. They can then, when they interview for the Browns job, say, hey, you know, this guy over here, I coached him up in Europe. He's over here. He's putting up numbers for this team here. You know, you can have that on your resume instead of just going, well, I played 10 years in the league as a backup, and I can do this and that. So I feel like it would help everyone overall. It would help owners and GMs find because everyone's always looking for that diamond in the rough that nobody knows about who comes out and shines. So I feel like they would have that opportunity if they had another developmental league.
One thing I worry about though is that for those who actually go to this, if it is more than the skills, where you learn your skills and own your skills, and you actually have games, like I worry about the extra wear and tear on the players going into the NFL. I mean, the NFL is already getting to the point now where they've cut back on the training camp, on the OTAs, trying to preserve these guys' bodies. And every additional hit that they take, and I hate to sound like this, takes a hit off their career. And it's obviously to improve their game, but that lessens the amount of time in the NFL. I'm sure that's a risk that they will be willing to take, but that's just a concern as well. I also just feel like y'all both y'all mentioned it, but I think when the NFL, if this gets too big, the NFL will shut it down.
Yeah.
If it's not anything that's directly with the Shield, as far as the 32 NFL teams, I don't think that Goodell and his cronies are going to continue to let that go anymore. They have no interest in, I'm not going to say they don't have any interest in expanding the game. They've had difficulty expanding the game. And in this regard, I feel like this would greatly expand the game. But once they feel like it could possibly branch off into their own league, I think they shut it down.
Coming off of that, I agree with that to a point. But I think they would be able to twist that around, and they would be able to find a way to spin it, be like, hey, every hit these NFL players are taking, it takes a hit off of their career. But if we got them developing over here, they're not taking NFL caliber hits. They're taking these lower caliber. It's pretty essentially a college hit that they're taking, and it's not as bad. I feel like if they generated enough buzz and enough money, they would be able to make it work. But like you said, I don't see them as from the player's perspective. As a player, I wouldn't want to go over there because it takes a hit off my career. That's taking time off my back. Like this, your injuries. You're not gonna have that same medical staff that can help.
And then
you
if they do
you're
get
overseas.
And then if they do get injured, are they still compensated like they are in the NFL? I mean, how are they going to do contracts? Are the contracts going to be guaranteed for a certain amount? Obviously, they're not going to get paid like NFL guys, but again, it's a lot logistically that has to be covered. And I'm not really sure Goodell is really much interested in doing that. And truthfully, he has enough problems of his own with this silly 18-game nonsense and CTE and concussions. I don't even know if this is on the table. I honestly don't think that this is even on the table.